have case studies from the University of Vienna and the University of Edinburgh. We'll hear about the Environmental Research Network and also the Edinburgh Earth Initiative. I'd also like to thank in advance of our event, our chair, the speakers, you, the participants, and also those who organised today's event, including Julia Graham from the University of Vienna and also the UNICA Secretariat. It is my pleasure to now introduce our chair, the Vice Rector for Infrastructure at the University of Vienna, Professor Regina Hitzenberger. Regina, over to you.
Thank you. In case you're wondering, Vice Rector for Infrastructure, what do I have to do with sustainability? Well, sustainability is within my portfolio. And so, yes, sustainability is my job. A warm welcome from me to you all. Maybe a few words about the University of Vienna. We are old. Next month, we celebrate 657 years University of Vienna. So this means we are a sustained university. But we are also a sustainable university. We now have moved into the direction of, we have a sustainability strategy, and we go forward in all three fields of sustainability. You all know economic, ecologic, and social sustainability. No matter how old a university is, we all have a common goal, of course, to create knowledge and to teach students. But when I look at this in terms of sustainability, it's we provide the future decision makers, the future voters, voters, they're already voters, and citizens with, of course, knowledge, but also with the skills and tools they need to make good decisions in maybe 40 years from now. So sustainability in teaching, in research, and also in third mission outreach is for our universities extremely, extremely, extremely important. Sustainability is essential. We all know the Sustainable Development Goals. And, well, they're all important, but one goal that is sometimes a bit overlooked is goal number 17. That's partnerships. And bringing together actually all the other goals. So today we have this webinar on academic networks. We all know as universities we cannot stay isolated. The different fields in universities cannot stay isolated. We need to interact within the university. We need to interact with our local national communities. And of course, universities need to interact with each other, no matter where they are. And so the UNICA Green Network is a very good place for interaction and for networking. We need partnerships. We need to talk to each other. And we need to talk between disciplines. We need to talk with external stakeholders, with other universities. And today the topic is academic networks. We will hear about the Environmental Research Network at the University of Vienna and the Edinburgh Earth Initiative at the University of Edinburgh. So the first presentation today will be given by Thilo Hofmann and Judith Mühlbacher from the University of Vienna. Just a very, very quick introduction. You all have the short bios. Thilo is professor at the University of Vienna. He's at the Center for Microbial Environmental Systems Analysis, yes. So this is in itself an interdisciplinary center. He has been at the University of Vienna since 2005. and he is head of this environmental research network. Judith Mühlbacher is coordinator of this network. Judith has been a coordinator since 2020. And those two colleagues from the University of Vienna will present you the Environmental Research Network. I also introduce the second talk so that we can move seamlessly from one talk to the other. The other is presented by Jamie Cross, who is a professor for social and economic anthropology at the University of Edinburgh. And I must say, I like the Cool Infrastructures project, how to help marginalized people keep cool in overheated global cities. That's an extremely important topic. I'm looking forward to your talk, Jamie. But first, I give the floor to Thilo Hofmann and Judith Mühlbacher for the first talk of this series. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I start sharing my screen. I hope this works nicely and should be okay by now. Give me a second for the presenter. Okay, yeah, nice good morning from Vienna. Thank you so much, Laura, Regina, Matthew, for introducing us. And I would like to give a quick start about this network. The goal number 17 has been mentioned, and I think this is really also important for UNICA. I also would like to give a lot of credit to Judith. Judith is organizing the network, and she did great work also with the slides. And I'd like to kick in and start immediately. We heard already a little bit about the research network. So what is it about? What is the topic here? So a network, as the name says, it is within the University of Vienna. We have 230 members. That's quite a lot. We have a nice newsletter with internal recipients and the whole network. Judith will later present a little bit more in detail. It's about cooperation, sustainability, career development, research stimulation, knowledge transfer, and so on, and awareness rising. So we have a lot of topics this network likes to promote. And I'm very happy to have this floor here to start a discussion, to learn from your questions, to learn from your input, and maybe we can give something back, like showing what we're doing here at the University of Vienna. So as Regina, our Vice Rector, already said, our university is pretty old. It's one of the largest universities in the German-speaking area, and I point this out for one very specific reason I come to in a moment. We have about 90,000 students, that's a lot, and we have about 10,000 employees and 15 faculty centers. And this has a certain problem if you want to start something like this, and this is something I would like to point out. The problem is that we have beautiful faculties or schools like in physics or chemistry, psychology or sciences, philological, cultural science, historical law, computer science, and so on and so on. But we do not have a faculty, for example, for environmental science. And even though if we would have a faculty for environmental science, still there would be a lot of disciplines which matter. So let me put it in these words. The faculties here at the University of Vienna, these are really the pillars of the university. But sustainability and environmental science, that's really something cross-cutting. Yeah? It addresses basically everything. So you need smart people from mathematics, from psychology, social sciences, physics, computer sciences. So however you structure a university internally, there will never be such thing that you can address all agendas, all topics from environmental sciences. So we thought that the idea here is to really creating a cross-cutting structure which connects these faculties, and that's what the network is about. We made a little bit in analysis. What are the strengths of the University of Vienna in this field? We put these environmental systems here in the system, and these nice words, which I like pretty much, is planetary health. So if we want to keep this planet healthy, we have to combine things. And then we found out in an analysis we did, and the really interesting exercise here has been in the network, that we were not really aware of this completely. So after discussing with the people, we became aware that we have 3 overall layers. The one layer is the thing which you see in the center, and then we have another layer here and the yellow layer. And the one thing is the socioeconomic drivers. So if we talk about environmental sustainability, it's a lot about socioeconomic drivers. So it's about governance and policy and economy, and we have research groups being very active in this field. It's about social and cultural processes, which could be very different, and they are drivers. And it's, of course, about human decisions and behaviors. I will bring this up later with the fast food paradoxon. We all know what to buy in the supermarket, but we come out with a bag of stuff which is actually not what we should have bought. And then it's much about values and principles. And Vienna University also does a lot of research here on evidence-based decisions. But what is really evidence-based? I mean, there haven't been better times than the last 2 years. What is transformative research in citizen science, and what is environmental equity and justice? So that's all areas we are doing actively research. And then we have the fields more of natural sciences. It's climate change, biogeochemical cycles, biodiversity, ecosystem, emerging contaminants, toxicity, green material and processes. So we came to the point that a real new strength would be combining these layers, working really together in these layers. And that's what the network is about, like a cross-cutting initiative. And with this, I would like to hand over to Judith to present the network, the history, and what are our goals.
Thank you, Thilo, and thanks for everyone else for organizing and also for being here this morning. I will give you a very brief history, and I mean actually brief. So basically, the network got started in 2014 as a bottom-up initiative from 4 natural science faculties. So we actually started in that center of the graph that Thilo just showed, but then quickly it became clear that we also need other faculties to join. And so since 2019, we actually opened up the membership to all faculties across the university, and I'm proud to say that we've actually reached almost all of them. Somehow theology has not joined us yet, but you know, we can keep trying. And we're now up to almost 250 members actually. And yeah, they're from all faculties, from all disciplines. And thankfully, we're continuously financed by the Rectorate. I also have to say thank you for that. They keep enabling the kind of work that we're doing. So what is our mission? Why do we exist? I'm just going to read this because it's already perfectly formulated. The Environmental Research Network is a platform for cutting-edge environmental research conducted across all disciplines at the University of Vienna, striving for advances that sustain the planet today and for generations to come. So why do we need such a platform? Basically, I think we're all aware that the complex issues of our time, the complex socio-ecological crises, require an integration of knowledges. And these knowledges need to be integrated within the university. So on the one hand, we need to bring together researchers so they can produce these kind of cross-cutting outcomes. But we also need to integrate that knowledge beyond the university. We need to carry it out there and get it to where it's needed, be it society, policymakers, economists. So there needs to be this overflow of knowledge from the university out into the world. And how do we do that? So this is an overview of our activities, or sort of areas of activities. I'm going to later on go into detail with every single bubble, so you can actually see what this looks like in everyday life. But what we're aiming to do is to connect environmental scientists and researchers of all disciplines and actually also all levels. So we start from a PhD level and go all the way up, because we also think it's really important to create this generational dialogue. Then it's really important for us to actually stimulate research. So not just connect them, but actually get them to work together, to collaborate. And for that, we also want to help get third-party funding if we can. It's also important to support career development. So from the early stage researchers onwards to actually support these interdisciplinary processes. Once this beautiful knowledge is produced, it also needs to get out there. So we work a lot in the field of visibility and outreach, meaning that we're aiming to create different formats that actually disseminate the knowledge that is created at the university within the network. We also function as a knowledge hub. So we are sort of the go-to place that knows about calls and events, sustainable practices. Actually, now we hand over more to the sustainability office now that it exists. And yeah, all of that has a little bit to do with knowledge transfer, right? So on the one hand, we need to transfer knowledge within the university, which is sort of this education part. But then we also really take third mission very seriously and want to raise awareness in society at large. So what are concrete activities that we do? In order to connect our members, we regularly, or actually in the last 2 years, not so regularly, have events for our members where they can get to know each other and also get to know each other's research. So it's really important for us that people don't think in the box of their discipline, but see, they peek up and are like, oh, what's out there? What are other people doing? And that actually creates ideas for them, maybe for their next research projects. And sorry, one important point. We also have the monthly member news where basically I just send out information about different calls and events that are happening. And this is also for members to keep in touch with each other and is a way for them to spread ideas and news from their faculties. Because usually they can only reach people within their discipline, but this way they can expand their reach. And the kind of networking events that we have, they actually work as a huge stimulator for research. So people get to talk, they exchange, and actually research platforms have sprung from these kind of exchanges. And as I already said, we also try to support with third-party funding. So if we can manage to connect different people or different expertises, that's what we try to do. We also place a focus on career development. So for example, we host a postdoc retreat where postdocs can really take the time to get deeper into their topics. And we host a PhD career day where PhDs can get an idea of what is possible after the PhD, right? Then we also host these skill workshops where we try to identify, what would be an important skill for an environmental researcher to have to actually manage to get their research out there. One such a thing is a media training that we hosted last year, where 2 experts came in and trained PhDs in how to communicate their environmental research well, because we all know it's the knowledge is there, but it's really about how we communicate it, which is also one of our tasks, obviously, giving visibility and this kind of outreach to the knowledge that is produced. So one of our biggest events is the Umwelt im Gespräch. It's a panel discussion that hosts about 300 participants when it's not Corona. We couldn't host it for the past 2 years, but I'm very much looking forward to pick it up again this May. And it's always a really fruitful discussion of scientists from different research areas, but then also civil society actors. Then we also keep the broad public informed with our quarterly news flash. Giving bits and pieces of news that are happening at the University of Vienna in regards to environmental research. We also have a website and social media that you're very welcome to visit if you want to know more about us. And we're about to launch a new media series, which is going to be a combination of videos and a podcast. Because, yeah, in these past 2 years, I think we've all realized the importance of digital medias in order to keep the outreach going. Yeah, and with all this knowledge that we put out there, you could consider us a knowledge hub for environmental research. So on the one hand, we actually become a go-to point for external stakeholders. So for example, if an environmental journalist needs expertise in a specific field, they can just contact me and I can see who is doing research on that at the University of Vienna. But then also we try to pass on the knowledge within the university. Yeah, and the environmental research that is being produced at the University of Vienna it's also important to transfer that within the university and beyond. So basically, when we have this lecture series called Environmental Engagement Talks, which is open to the broader public and also students. And within that, we really try to place an emphasis on awareness raising. So we don't just present this very highly disciplinary environmental research, but the question is always, what is the impact? What are the consequences of this kind of research, and how can it contribute to societal solutions? So this is the kind of sustainable education that we strive for. And with that, I hand back over to Thilo.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This was a very nice presentation, what we're actually doing, and this sounds great. And we could say, hooray, that's the best network ever here. But of course, there are also challenges, and I would like, of course, that our vice rector, who is funding it, does not listen to the next slides. That's very important, because I don't want to beat around the bush, and also put out very open what are the challenges in such a network, what works nicely and what does not work. Because I think this UNICA Green seminar is also maybe to help each other and to see what works good at universities and what does not work so good. So I come back to this riddle over here, that we have a lot of faculties and centers, all, well, not really connected or partly connected, and we have a lot of very exciting fields here we want to combine. So one point is the healthy food paradox. Let me call it like this. So we know exactly when we go to the supermarket or the restaurant what we should buy, and then we end up with this beautiful food over here, or with some salty stuff and fatty stuff. So we know what is the right thing to do versus actually doing it. There's a little bit of difference. And in such a network, it is easily that in the beginning people say, yes, of course, I would like to go greener. I would like to work interdisciplinary. I would like to put my time into this. But that's really a problem, because normally when you start a network, you would want to work with the best people at your university. And these are normally not people who can tell you, well, you know, excellent, so far I had 3 hours per day free for nothing. Normally we are filled up to the limit with agenda, with duties, with things to do. So it is not really easy to get this time. So time shortage, it's really a big thing here. So a critical question from my part would be, is this a hobby horse for established scientists? And why do I put it this way? If you are tenured, if you have a permanent position, you work hard, probably more than 40 hours. And even in such a situation, it is pretty hard to start something like this, to get some extra time and free time. And normally we are also not evaluated by how many cross-cutting, environmental friendly, interdisciplinary initiatives have you started. You are evaluated by, well, surprise, how many papers have you published, in which journal, how much third-party money did you bring in? So that this is not normally on the agenda where you are, and your value in the scientific market, to put it, is honored. And that's for established scientists, but how is it for early career scientists? Just think about this for a second. It's much harder. A PhD student, depending on the country where you are, has, in Austria, for example, 3 years, this is almost impossible in the natural sciences to finish a PhD in 3 years. Maybe you have a little bit more time, but if you want to work interdisciplinary, how should you deal with the pressure for success of early career scientists versus the time you need for truly interdisciplinary research projects? We don't speak the same language if we want to combine these knowledge. And I see this in all of the projects versus the high motivation. So I see that early career scientists have a very high motivation. They really want to do something better, but there's a lot of pressure for them in this treadmill of science. And I don't see a good balance here so far. The other thing is a project duration. Yeah, so we want to be quick. Our funding agency says, yeah, you have 3 years or EU 4 years or something, and we have all these milestones and these beautiful things. Easy, quick gains are practically impossible. So if you run such a network, this needs really time. If you run projects, they need more time, but this is not accounted for, not even at the funding agency. So we have a little bit these, what I call 3-year projectitis. So we always have to write a new proposal, new proposal, new proposal. Some could question, how much time do we spend proposal writing money-wise? How much time proposal evaluating costs? And how much costs a funding agency just organizing all these proposals? There's beautiful literature out of this to say, that's a lot of money. Could there be a better system? I would say, yes, there could be a better system. In these interdisciplinary projects, we are not at all at a stage that our funding agencies are able to start this. And I feel that's of paramount importance for our universities, because we ourselves at our universities, we can do something better here, because out there in the market, there's barely anything available. You have a little bit an inverse activation energy for the chemists or physicists here. It is easy to start. So when we started the network, it's always, oh, wow, great, good initiative, but it's pretty hard to fly. Many say yes in the beginning, but the daily chores and the lack of funding makes it extremely difficult to keep up the spirit. So the question at the end of many is, what is my gain? What do I get out of it? So we need to think very carefully about real incentives and gains for the researchers in such a network. Why are they willing to invest time in this interdisciplinary environmental research? I think there's a lot. I think it's really important, but I just would like to put this out. It's not self-running system. Yeah, you need to invest in this. It also needs money. It needs time, and it needs to be a benefit for the researchers, because you could ask yourself, why should I not write an email to my local funding agency in the same time? Maybe that's faster to drive forward my own research. Funding is a big issue. I would personally say that if you look to approval rates, that it is more difficult for interdisciplinary projects to get funded at the national science foundations. Why? Because you pitch something together with 3 researchers or 4 researchers, and you always find the expert in exactly this field. And he says, well, here in the social science, oh, this is not elaborated well enough. I mean, the physics or the chemistry, I don't understand anyway, but I look to the social science. And then the other reviewer is from the chemistry side and it says, yeah, the social crap, I don't understand. But here in the chemistry, you need to work here. So see what I mean? You get reviewers from different fields, which makes it harder for you to pass such a project. So for me, evaluation seems to be harder. And I can only speak for Austria. The funding is very limited for interdisciplinary projects. At the EU scale, that's a little bit different. Most EU call now run fully interdisciplinary, but at the national scale, not. And I would say also, I started the whole talk with that we are cross-cutting the faculties. That's really the aim. We need the disciplinary excellence. That's really matters. You need people who have disciplinary excellence, and then we want a cross-cutting structure. But this means in the beginning, to start with, that you have a lack of physical space, and this hinders us a little bit. I have seen beautiful examples in British Columbia or at Oxford or others where you have maybe a lot of funding and can build a new building, energy friendly, everything. I would love that we get much more funding than the ministry in Austria, that we could say, hey, here you got 20 or 50 million euros, you can build such a building, but we don't have it. Very simply, very open, and the university can't afford this. That's not possible. But a physical hub to facilitate this collaboration. If your university or your ministry allows for this, like Stanford Woods or in Princeton's the Pi. They're beautiful examples of such cross-cutting initiatives that also have a physical space. The lack of physical space, it's a problem. We cannot talk around this. How do you meet? How do you bring this together? What are the opportunities? There are a lot of opportunities. I don't sound that. One thing which is sometimes a little bit overseen is, I think that's a very high value for each university. It supports a great spirit. It helps to connect the people in the university internally, and it gives coherence, and that's really important. So within the last years, I worked together with aerosol physics, with people from psychology, from the social sciences, and we meet frequently in this network, in also our advisory board. It brings people together and it builds trust. And I mean this very seriously, because normally there are these sayings like the natural sciences could say, oh, and the social sciences, they're just doing blah, 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 that's not real science. Or the social sciences say, oh, these natural sciences, they're a little bit blind, they're just working in their silo. So we have all these cliches, and of course they're crap. And such a network really helps to build trust. It helps to keep your university more together. And that's really important for large universities like our university, University of Vienna. I think that's a high value which you cannot measure, but it brings the people together and builds more trust inside the university. It leads to new project ideas. We have really seen this. People met from totally different disciplines and start working together. Sometimes they cannot even pitch in the same call, because in the EU you have only one or maximum 2 members, but it brings new ideas. So you are basically, you are better suited to be a member in other project. And it's a lot of interfaces, and I think these interfaces, this is where a lot of innovative thinking takes place. And I would also say, if you do this internationally, that's one of the next step of the University of Vienna, you could increase the visibility and reputation of your university. And finally, and maybe being most importantly, that's my personal message, I think, finally, it helps to address keeping our planet within safe planetary boundaries, that this nice little ball over here, our Earth, this is the Rockstrom picture, stays on the safe side and doesn't fall down in this pitfall on the not so safe side, but we are on the edge. Thanks a lot for your attention, and with this I would like to stop my presentation and hand over.
Thank you. I already raised my hand to give the signal, time's over, but you're perfectly in time. What should I say? You said I shouldn't listen to your talk. Well, I did. And we'll discuss it later. But of course, I see the same pitfalls, dangers, challenges, etc. But okay, we'll talk internally. So thank you. Now to the next presentation by Jamie Cross. Well, the floor is yours, Jamie. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Regina. Really delighted to be here today. And thanks very much to Thilo and Judith for their presentation that you just completed. It's lots of really interesting things to think about. And I'm going to actually deviate a little bit from the presentation I planned in order to address some of the questions that you raised. I think it's really a helpful opportunity to reflect on some of the challenges and opportunities across our 2 institutions. So I really welcome the opportunity to do that. And thanks very much for how you've opened that discussion. Let me just briefly share my screen, and hopefully we can move from there. Okay, I hope you can all see that. So, as I was introduced at the beginning, my name is Jamie Cross. I'm a professor of social and economic anthropology at the University of Edinburgh. And since the beginning of 2022, I am also the director of the Edinburgh Earth Initiative. The Edinburgh Earth Initiative is the new platform to the University of Edinburgh's response to the climate crisis. It was launched just at the very end of last year, in November last year, to coincide with COP26, which, as you all know, was held here in Scotland, with a simple aim to accelerate education, research, impact, and global partnerships in ways that help to manage and mitigate climate change. So really the impetus for the Edinburgh Earth Initiative came from the university's long-standing commitments across our 3 colleges and over 25 different schools, where many academics are kind of engaged with and working through our kind of contemporary challenges. We have a number of different research centres and institutes with a sustainability or environment focus, but until last year had no single umbrella that really sought to coordinate or help to catalyse activity across those, which is where the Earth Initiative came in. I think it's no accident that a social scientist was put in the position of the kind of directorship. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a climate scientist, but as a social scientist, I think I bring a different understanding of some of our challenges and problems that emphasises the social and political dimensions of those, and doesn't just see our solutions as technical. And I think that's a key message that comes from the University of Edinburgh right now. I think it's also important to recognise that in 2022, universities like Edinburgh, and perhaps like Vienna as well, also come with new responsibilities to reflect on our own histories. And it's a really important moment for the University of Edinburgh to just engage with and reflect on our own historic legacy. 250 years ago, at the height of the Scottish Enlightenment, University of Edinburgh academics and intellectuals spearheaded some of the innovations and technological inventions that really lay the grounds for the Industrial Revolution and for new systems of exploitation of our natural resources, and new ways of kind of driving the kind of expansion and use of fossil fuels. Obviously laying the ground for some of the climate crisis that we confront today. And yet at the same time, in universities like Edinburgh, we had scientists in the natural and physical sciences whose work also laid the ground for the study of chemistry and geophysics, geology, that also today underpin how we actually understand the impact of the Anthropocene on the Earth and on the Earth systems. And as I've come into this new role, I think it's really important for me to kind of understand that historic tension. On the one hand, a university like Edinburgh has a real closeness to some of the roots and causes, if you like, of the Anthropocene, the history of the Anthropocene. And at the second hand, our historic engagements, our intellectual legacy underpins some of the work that helps us to engage with and understand and perhaps navigate through our climate crisis today. And I think making that really explicit, making that history an important part of how we describe and narrate our current work is really important, and something that maybe we might touch on in the discussion later today. So let me just say a little bit about the Earth Initiative and how it's been established and set up. It came about as the outcome of a consultation exercise across the University of Edinburgh, engaging both our staff, academic and faculty over the course of 2021, and identified 3 core research pillars, which I'll say a little bit about today, around which our activity is going to focus and seek to strengthen some of that work. We also have an executive remit to focus on our global impact outside of the academy and our global partnerships, particularly in parts of the global south, across Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia and Southeast Asia, where the University of Edinburgh has strong ties, historic relationships, and many live research projects. We also have a remit to focus attention on resourcing and fundraising, something that our previous speakers raised as a real challenge. The University of Edinburgh has a long track record of success in attracting research funding from the UK government, as well as the EU and international fundraisers. Our remit is to try and catalyse new opportunities for success in fundraising, including from philanthropic trusts and foundations with a climate, environment, sustainability focus. And finally, we're really involved in conversations at the University of Edinburgh around curriculum transformation that seek to explore how climate and sustainability is embedded in teaching and learning across undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and also expands existing curricula to create new opportunities for student engagement through projects and practical work, both with researchers at the university as well as outside that. So there are some of the key aspects of our current work. I'm going to say a little bit about each of those in a bit more depth and fill out some of the gaps before I raise some of the questions that Thilo and Judith came to. First of all, one of our key themes is focused around energy futures, questions of how we transition to an affordable, reliable and environmentally sustainable energy system for all. That speaks to a cross-cutting, cross-disciplinary group of scholars at the university, spanning engineering, mathematics, architecture, as well as the social sciences, whose work comes together in an existing network, Energy at Edinburgh network, with a number of live research projects, including a project that I myself run called Cool Infrastructures, which Regina kindly mentioned in the introduction. I'd be happy to say a little bit more about that too. The second pillar is around sustainable land and seas, an ecosystems focused research pillar, which brings together many of our geoscientists, as well as ecologists and biologists, whose work is squarely focused on understanding the impact of climate change and ecosystems collapse in marine ecologies, as well as land-based ecosystems. A third key pillar that spans many of the different areas of work across the University of Edinburgh is focused on health, health in a warming world. And this pillar encompasses work on everything from zoonotic disease to the transformations in food and agriculture and the impacts on human nutrition as a result of transformations in the Earth's ecosystems. Again, connecting schools of veterinary science and medicine to our social sciences and humanities scholars. Connecting all those three pillars is a university level commitment to social justice, equity and inclusion, which underpins some of the foundational pieces of work that are done and the partnerships that we're seeking to develop. So as you can hear, that's just the broad kind of introduction to the Earth Initiative, how it's been established and set up, and how we're envisaging its work. I just want to say a little bit more about what that means in practice. A key part of what we're seeking to do over the next 3 years in the short term is to build and support a new generation of student and postgraduate leaders from across different regions, including in this case, as I mentioned, Latin America, South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, through scholarships and access to our training programs. And through global partnerships with academic institutions, in particular across the Global South. I just want to flag a couple of announcements that are hopefully on the horizon for spring 2022, which includes a major investment in our Earth Observation Group, focused on monitoring global greenhouse gas emissions, a major expansion of our Marine Research Group, an Earth Scholars Fund, a scholarship program for undergraduate students, a program on climate adaptation in West Africa, an expansion of a sustainable forestry group, and an Earth Data Hub, what we're imagining will be a significant new public resource on climate data. So a few key areas that we're working towards this spring, and I hope to announce very shortly. But I just wanted to spend a bit of time circling back to the challenges and opportunities. You've heard the grand pitch for the Earth Initiative, which is part of how we're describing our work internally and externally. But one of the key challenges for an initiative like this is around our internal communications. The University of Edinburgh is a huge university. It's got about 45,000 students, 14,500 staff. Trying to communicate what an initiative like this might do, might offer across that vast community is incredibly challenging. It means trying to marshal some of our internal communication systems, our email systems, our kind of newsletters. But as I'm understanding very clearly, a lot of that is around personal communication and a clear messaging about our opportunities with our key partners across the university. And as you might be able to hear, I've partially lost my voice because of the amount of meetings and conversations I've had over the last 4 or 5 weeks in terms of trying to communicate a very clear message through our university. I think as anybody working in a big institution like this is aware, over the last decade or so, every university has sought to try and establish some kind of initiative with a green, sustainable focus, and trying to ensure that in the midst of all kinds of challenges in higher education, that staff and students continue to recognize that these present opportunities that are positive and outward looking is really important. So we've invested a huge amount of time and energy over the last few weeks in our internal communications, trying to communicate to our staff and student body. And that means going a little bit beyond the mapping exercises that involve just lists of projects and activities, to understand more carefully where exactly it is that communities of academics want to go in the next 3 to 5 years, what kind of strategic priorities people have for their own units, for their own research groups, and how to manage that in a strategic way that offers a shape at an institutional level, as well as meeting some of the research-focused aims and objectives of individual groups. The second challenge and opportunity, I think, is around our global partnerships and around what we might call integrity and equity in North-South relations. At the moment, given the legacies and histories that universities in the global North and global South are grappling with, I think it's really vital that we actually put integrity and equity in those relationships at the top of our agenda. Having sat on the sidelines of COP26 last year and listened to delegations from across the world come and visit the University of Edinburgh and speak about the kinds of priorities that they have for their governments as well as their institutions, it becomes overwhelmingly apparent that as we try and build partnerships into the future, we have to really grapple with and recognize the kind of historic legacies and burdens in some of those relationships, and make that a really important part of how we build relationships moving forward. So that's something that we've been trying to think through really carefully and put into practice in a way that we develop through conversations, dialogue, platforms and agendas for research and research-led activities with our global partners. We also know that's something that adds real value to the University of Edinburgh's own international profile. We know many universities around the world hold great stead in their international relationships, and we think that's something that we can do particularly well by giving space to dialogue and engagement. I just wanted to say something about academic time. Thilo had raised the challenges of academic time as a really important part of how we build initiatives like this. And again, something that we've been grappling with really directly over the last few weeks. One way that we've sought to address that head on is by developing a program for institutional secondments, which would function a little bit like a sabbatical. I'm sure you're all familiar with a sabbatical model, which effectively allows an individual to be bought out of their teaching and administrative obligations in order to focus on a piece of research. Sabbaticals are very individual focused in the sense that they allow people to focus on individual research agendas. We're thinking about secondments in a slightly more institutional way as an opportunity for individual researchers to focus on projects or initiatives that add value to the institution as a whole, whether through support for cross-school or cross-college interdisciplinary research grants, or programs or activities that help to do part of what we've laid out here. So mechanisms that recognize the demands on people's time of supporting these kinds of initiatives and find a mechanism for doing that. The Project Titus challenge that Thilo also recognized, I think it also means that we have to address head-on the kinds of challenges that people face from having many different requirements, demands on capturing research money and finding opportunities to keep bidding for competitive funding. I suppose we might try and think about turning what seems like something, some kind of endemic problem, Project Titus, into something a bit more focused and honed, like a kind of a projectile-like initiative. We've been trying to think about how to manage projects and offer support for projects a bit more efficiently within the Earth Initiative. And over the next year, we're hoping to introduce a system that creates a cohort of dedicated doctoral and postdoctoral students who can lend support to project-based research applications in a way that both creates opportunities for exposure to the grants fundraising environment, offers opportunities for people to learn how to put grants together at an early stage in their career, also involves them more directly in those kind of research initiatives and projects, and adds deeper support for faculty who are trying to develop those kind of bits. Finally, I just want to raise the challenges around disciplinary and interdisciplinary funding, which I'm aware that the different funding landscape in the UK actually does add quite a lot of focus on interdisciplinarity at the moment. And in fact, our UK research and innovation, the UK government's principal mechanism for delivering research funding to UK higher education, increasingly does support and actually require cross-disciplinary collaboration. Now, of course, as an academic myself, I'm only too aware of what that means to be pulled in at the last minute as a social scientist into other kinds of projects and grants led by colleagues. But I think that where we are maybe in a different position at the University of Edinburgh is that we have, through investment in institutional networks, begun to develop quite a significant level of trust amongst scholars from across disciplines who are able to, I think, even if they aren't able to speak the language of their colleagues, are able to recognise and value that different academic disciplinary language and understand that its contribution has something to offer. And I think that's the kind of environment that we're really seeking to foster, which does also involve a high degree of trust and recognition of each other's disciplinary capacities. And I suppose there's no greater indication of that paying off when you hear colleagues either in the natural, physical sciences, engineering, begin to draw on and use the language, for example, of social sciences in their kind of discussions and presentations to colleagues, and vice versa. I'm going to stop there. I think that's the kind of end of my time frame. I'm really happy to speak a bit more in detail about some of those areas that I've raised there. But Regina, I'll pass back over to you.
Thank you. Also for keeping the time. Thank you both for keeping the time. I think we heard two talks that have differences and similarities, and especially the challenges and opportunities we all face, I think are very, very, very similar. Building trust among scholars stands up to my mind. I'm myself a scientist. This always is, well, challenging, and internal communication is also a huge task I think all universities grapple with. There are two networks. The network, the Environmental Research Network that Thilo presented, is a network mainly within the University of Vienna, but of course with outreach. And your talk, Jamie, presented a network that has, also focus on global relationships. It just shows that networks are extremely important, and we all have to keep in mind that these networks are what will help us as a society, us as humanity, to deal with the challenges that are being thrown at us. Now I go to the chat and go through the questions that have been posted. One is from Peter Musil from Comenius University in Bratislava. Is any scientific cooperation planned within the countries around the Danube, as has been the case in the past? I think this question is to Thilo Hofmann.
Yes, thanks very much, Peter, for the question. The network here basically is a hub in the field of environmental research. So if questions are coming up or inquiries are coming up, we try to find actually the right people. So for example, if there would be someone from the faculty of medicine at Comenius in Bratislava and says, well, we have a good idea about, could we connect the microbiome and with food or psychology or something, or the gut-brain axis, then I could easily basically find out the right partners here at the University of Vienna. Yes, of course, there is research going on, but this is then finally not done by the network itself. So I am aware of several projects which are running along the Danube. We, for example, in my group, we just started a huge project. This is called Twin Subdun. This is an EU call to combine research and capacity building with former Yugoslavian countries together with Western European countries. So this starts right now, and there's a lot of countries along the Danube. I know that University of Vienna has a very strong partnership with the Comenius University. So yes, these things happen, and the links and ties between Comenius and Vienna are very strong. But network-wise, as Judith pointed out very nice, we are basically a single point of contact. So if people would like to address us in the field of environmental research, Judith's email is out there, and Judith would react to this and find the right partners here. So that's what our network, for example, delivers in this field.
Thank you. The next question is from Elena Preda. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. How do you approach the sustainability issue into the education process? That's one question. And how do you involve economists into the environmental research network? Appreciate your initiative. I think the first question is to both of our speakers. The second question is specifically to the environmental research network. Maybe Jamie? You answer first. How do you approach the sustainability issue into the education process?
Thanks very much. So at the moment, we have a curriculum transformation process spanning the whole of the University of Edinburgh that's looking at how we might better integrate sustainability into our degree programs at undergraduate level. And at the moment, we have two different mechanisms for doing that, really. One is to support and encourage individual disciplines and subject groups to add courses for undergraduates that explicitly address climate sustainability related questions and issues. And we already see that happening across almost every discipline in the university, where that's becoming a core part of the agenda. The second mechanism is by providing additional credit-bearing courses that students can opt to take that are outside of their own core disciplines, but are introduced as a way of providing further skills or knowledge for specific students. To give an example, we have a course on carbon literacy, which any student from across the university can take, and is an option course outside of any discipline. So they're cross-cutting university-wide courses that are provided for students. So there are two examples of how we're integrating sustainability into the curriculum.
Thank you. Thilo?
From the side of the University of Vienna, we have a vice rectorate for teaching, and it is really on our topics that we include sustainability in all curricula where possible. And the curriculums change frequently, and it is a paradigm that in all curriculums from all disciplines, we really want to put sustainability and environmental friendly, and from the political science to philosophy to psychology or the natural sciences. So that's really something which kicks in more and more. We also have very nice, same as Jamie said, cross-cutting initiatives. For example, as Judith told, we had these engagement talks, and the engagement talks, to put this out specifically from the network, each semester we
identify 5 to 6 volunteers who want to present their fine research. And by purpose, we want to be very diverse here. So we always combine the different faculties. And then they talk about their field. It could be from astrophysics to earth sciences, to psychology, to social sciences. And we always have questions, for example, so pitfalls in transformation or whatsoever. And these lectures could be, same as Jenny said, elected by all curricula. So they're open to all. Yeah. And we have about 200 and more students from all over the university listening to this. And there I have to say, this is the maybe one very good thing, that students are more used now to Zoom, and we can do these massive online courses, and this works pretty nice. I mean, normally I love teaching in classroom, but here it works excellent, and this is pretty nice.
And maybe adding to that, because it's on Zoom, you are also welcome to join, because this is also open to the public. So I'm just going to post the link into the chat, and if anyone wants to check them out themselves, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Judith. The next question is from Agata Kotabova from Prague.
I think we missed the economist's question.
Oh,
Another one?
Yes, the economist question.
Quickly speak to that. Yeah, so basically it's just as Thilo said, that economists, just as any other stakeholder, could approach us, and we could link them up with researchers, depending on what kind of expertise they need. So be it in the field of energy use or recycling, or maybe more of a social scientific expertise. Then, of course, the University of Vienna also has a faculty for economics, business, and statistics. So in that sense, we also have researchers from that field that are involved in the network, that get to spread their knowledge, and are also involved in the agenda setting through the board, for example. Yeah.
Thank you. But now to Agata's question. Do you cooperate with municipalities and work on similar strategies for sustainable development? I think this question goes to both presenters. Well, Jamie?
Thanks very much, Agatha, for the question. Yes, we do work with municipalities, both here in Scotland and in the UK, as well as internationally. We have quite a close relationship with the City of Edinburgh, Municipal Authority, City of Edinburgh Council, and the University of Edinburgh, obviously, is the largest university in the city, has a long kind of relationship that involves work on at a policy level, as well as specific research projects and student interaction as well. Internationally, many of the different research projects that are hosted by the University of Edinburgh also involve partnerships and collaboration with municipal authorities around the world. And to the extent that they have a sustainability dimension, municipal authorities are often seen as a really key delivery partner for achieving non-academic impacts. So that's a really important reason why they are often brought into and written into our collaboration agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Here from our side for the network, it's a little bit different, because we are, as Regina already said, a network connecting internally, being a hub. We are not reaching out directly ourselves to the municipalities, but the research projects, of course, does. So we are aware of the research projects, reaching out to municipalities here in Austria, but also internationally. This goes, for example, if we go to regional planning or something, we have a professorship which does a lot of work in Asia about how does climate change and environmental issues force migration. We have a professorship coming from the UK, basically working a lot with how does greening and well-being and income fits together. Basically, is there a certain relationship between your income and where you live and how you receive your environment? So yes, the research itself reaches out, but not the network here.
Actually, I can add to this. The network does not reach out that much to the municipality, well, actually with the city of Vienna, but we as University of Vienna just started a collaboration with I don't know. I think it's a counselor for environment at the city of Vienna, and we are establishing now collaborations. What can we do as a university for the city of Vienna, and what can the city of Vienna do for us? And this is one of the things that is now currently being established. Well, we are right on time. Actually, we're 2 minutes ahead of our time. Thank you very much. I think we've seen today, well, 2 different networks with different focus, with different participants, but we've seen not only the differences, but we also saw the things we have, those networks have in common. As I said, the challenges and opportunities, there are similarities there. I think what we should do now is network between the networks, connect the networks, also connect other networks within the UNICA network, the network of universities from the capitals of Europe, to work towards the common goal, keeping Earth, the only planet we have, habitable for humans and all other beings on this planet. I think, yes, it has been an interesting morning. I thank the presenters for their talks. I thank the people who wrote in the chat for their questions. I wish you all a good day. Keep safe, stay healthy, and I wish all of us a good, sustainable future. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to all
very much, everybody.
for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, all. Much appreciated. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Regina, for your contribution.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. In
Yes,
person,
in
maybe
person.
one day.
In person.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.